It's a little-known Simi Valley treasure. Just a few hundred yards from a new Target store and right down the street from a business park is a slice of the region's history dating back to the 1800s. Strathearn Historical Park and Museum is 6 acres of land which almost looks like a tiny old-time town with homes, some barn-like structures, a church, and even a barber shop. In one of the buildings, a group of third graders from Crestview Elementary School is learning about what life was like for the area's first known inhabitants, the Chumash Indians. Some of the students are rubbing sticks together to try to start a cooking fire.
Not too much pressure on it. We want this to turn. We need some heat. We need a fire. We've got to get some friction.
Third grader Alex Dean describes what he's doing.
You put a stick into this thing and you rub it, and this will get hot and it will make heat.
Oh, wow.
The kids are amazed as the stick gets hot.
It'll come fast for nothing.
Smoke coming out of there.
It'll come fast for nothing.
Feel it.
I'm not feeling it. Ow.
My name is Alex, and my hometown, Simi Valley, California, is a suburb about 40 miles northwest of Los Angeles. From the time I first visited Strathearn Historical Park in the 3rd grade, I knew whoever chose to dedicate their life to the city's fascinating history was special, but little did I know she would become my hero.
The park was the idea of the Simi Valley Historical Society, which was founded in the early 1960s. Pat Havens is the director of the Historical Museum at the park as well as the city's historian. She talks about the park's history since it was first created in the mid-1960s.
Are you starting to feel the impact you've had on the community?
Well, I am finally. For a long time, it didn't seem terribly apparent or important, but I think by sticking with it this long, people realize it's important. It's very rewarding, I'll tell you, because it's been a very long, hard journey to get here, and it's so wonderful for people to recognize and acknowledge that. I never have really liked to be the center of attention, so here I am. But I'm relieved that other people see that what we've done is worth it, you know.
She's probably one of the first teachers that I felt really comfortable with when I was a kid. She didn't show any prejudice at all. She was always very kind to all the Mexican kids, you know. So to me, I just felt really good with her around. Every once in a while, I still call her Mrs. Havens. I don't know. You just can't get out of the habit of it.
My parents first came here in 1957. I was 2 years old, and the Havens, Pat and Neil, were actually the first couple that my parents met at the Methodist Church here in town. So I've known Pat my whole life. I think Pat is almost like a second mom to me, really. I mean, she's just I'm just part of her family. She's just part of our family. She still communicates to this day with my mom and dad, and she just means the world to me.
The centerpiece of the park is Strathearn House, which was home to one of the county's iconic farming families.
The original home place for the Strathearn Ranch Company, which was mostly cattle. They did some farming as well. So the main home was right here. When they moved over from Peru, when they came, they bought up around 15,000 acres. Many choices of where to build, but because the remains of the old Pico adobe were still here, even though it needed a lot of work, they added their new house onto the front of it in 1892.
So what do you remember, Pat, about moving to Simi?
About moving to Simi?
Yeah,
moving
to Simi.
To Simi?
Yes.
That's
Simi.
what we're talking about, Simi.
Simi.
The reason we moved to Simi, my dad worked for Adrian G. Wood, and he worked for the big ranch that went all the way from the ocean back to Foster Park. I loved Simi because everybody was, it was a small community, so pretty soon you got to know pretty much everybody.
So over here, if you can see, you've got your high school graduate.
Yeah, that's my anyway, That was basically was our class. The whole bunch of us fit into a single photo like that. When I went to Whittier College, you could not major in education at that time, so you had to choose a major, and I chose history. But American history was always so important. I didn't get into California history until I began teaching, but then I was 21 years old. So how many years it would have had to spent on California history. Okay. But I've enjoyed not only working on California history, but figuring out Simi's place in it. One night, Janet and Dave Strathearn and Neil and I went to something in Ventura, and on the way home, in between them singing crazy songs and stuff, we came up with the idea that nobody else is going to do it, so we'd better form a historical society. And that's what we did in '64. Oh, this is just silly. It's just, I think that was Pat Bousquet driving somebody's old car, and my daughter Debbie and I are in the back seat, and this was what we used to call Pioneer Day Parade. The Historical Society, as we were forming, our old-timers had all their own ideas about favorite little buildings, of course everything was little, that we would like to keep. So when this 6 acres became accessible to us, then is when they started moving them here. I had already started collecting history the whole time, and Bill Appleton and I realized we needed to make a book. We never dreamed it would be 500 pages long. But the reason that was such a success, I believe, is because I knew so many of the experts in each field, and they were quite pleased with what we were doing here. And I think maybe they didn't have another opportunity like this, because I invited them all to write a chapter on their own subject.
So tell me about this time you met Reagan.
Well, that was my husband's idea. He said, after we did the book, he said, well, we should give one to President Reagan. And we went down to Century City, and he was already kind of being managed very closely. You know, he sat down at his desk and started looking at the pictures, and pretty soon they just took and put the book up on the shelf. And I wondered if anybody ever handed it to him again, because I think he enjoyed it. He had said something about, when they chose Simi for the location. But I didn't get to meet him at any other time.
While Simi Valley is now a sea of homes and businesses, pictures of the park show the community's early days when it was a lush green valley filled with agricultural fields. Those involved with the Historical Society and the park say their goal is to help the community learn more about its roots.
I think it's very important for people to realize what was here before they moved here, because you tend, when you move in, you think, oh, well, it's always been like this. Who cares really what happened before? We were as important as any other agriculture community anywhere.
When I was in the 3rd grade, I first fell in love with Simi history on a field trip here at Strathearn Park. In high school, I began reading Pat's Simi history books, and when I saw Pat was retiring in the newspaper, I read that she still had one wish for the park, a true museum building. As of right now, the Strathearn Park Visitor Center is a 1990s school administrative portable building. Pat's life work deserves a true museum building that can display every artifact and photo she spent her life piecing together.
Why do you feel the park needs a true museum building?
Because nothing we have is being taken care of according to any kind of rules. Preservation, temperature, all kinds of problems. We've had our stuff in big old storage units that the Park District got for us, but they're not the way to take care of and make accessible any kind of records and protect them. There's two parts to it. If you don't preserve it, it's not going to be there for the next generations to ask about it. and preservation is so important.
One of the things that I think we just need to do is to publicize this area on a broader medias, just get people more aware of what is here at Strathearn Historical Park, and especially to be able to bring that up in front of the leaders of Simi Valley and be able to show them that, hey, you know what? This is not just a specific pioneer museum. This is a history of our valley.
It seemed to me we were way past the time that we need to start raising funds for a true museum building. And so we've been working on that, but it's a little bit haphazard because it takes a lot of time to come up with how we could maybe form a foundation separate from anything that we're doing now. I don't really want to be part of the Historical Society. I want it to be a community, money raised by everybody. We got quite a ways on some community leaders being attracted by the idea, and I believe we're going to get it done. Of course, it has to be with Park District approval and complete joining in with the idea, because this property belongs to the Park District. As far as I'm concerned, I've got a couple more things I'm working on, but I can't see to look at them or to do it, so I'll just keep doing what I'm doing until I'm no longer needed, I guess.
The amazing thing about Pat to me is that she gravitated towards preserving our history and she never gave up.
So, you looked around, right? And, you saw things changing. You saw this place as important, right? And not everybody, most people don't say, I'm going to do something about it. Why do you think you did something about it?
I don't know. It just built into me, I guess. I think it might go back to hard-working background people. Just everybody expected to work. Expected to, even my mother, who lived to be 90-something, she never stopped working. She was always an outside gardening kind of person. And I was always an indoor person because she left me inside to do the housework so she could be outside.
I am so privileged to have worked with her, because she's always been in my heart, because she was always such a good person, period. You don't find them like that often, especially here in Simi Valley in the olden days. Nowadays it's so much different, But in those days, when you found teachers like her, you didn't forget them.
I really believe that without Pat, we wouldn't have this historical park today. We have a lot of communities around us. We have some communities that actually have a little bit older history maybe, but they don't have anything like this. If we didn't have Pat Havens, we wouldn't have Strathearn Historical Park. We wouldn't have these antique buildings from the late 1800s or earlier that people can walk through and learn about today. Again, this is a unique opportunity for people to walk through history. There's nothing like it in our county. I don't think there's anything like this even in our state. And without Pat Havens, this just wouldn't have happened.
It's important for people to realize that every person has a responsibility. They need to keep right on working. I can't stop working. Even though I'm physically not able to do much, my head still tells me I've got things to do. And it's so important for people to stay busy in a positive way, not to think it through. Use common sense, stop rushing so fast. History is where it's at. If you don't know your history, you don't know much, because, and if you don't figure some of it out for yourself, because just reading in a book or listening and taking some of what somebody tells you, such as me, that's not adequate. You need to think it through yourself.
So I think we're done. let you rest a little bit. How do you feel?
Well, what I want to tell you,
Okay.
I got to thinking last night,
If there's anything else.
what a wonderful opportunity this has been. I have no idea if it's only going to be 20 minutes of a documentary, but I have this feeling there's some of the information that you found important will get used other ways. And I just think it is the most amazing tribute to me. I couldn't ask for. I would never have dreamed of anything like this. 3 days of talking. That's amazing. So I want to thank every one of you has been so courteous and so professional about all that you've done. And I want to thank you so much. And I will never get over this little third grade boy that caused all this.